You're listening to Bring Me the Axe. I'm Brian White. I'm one half of this morbid equation, and I'm joined by my co-host, an actual brother, Dave. Hey, Dave, how you doing?
Oh, thank you for asking. I am doing all right. You know, I have all week, I just wanted a goddamn Italian sandwich. I spend a lot of time thinking about sandwiches. And
I understand. I like a good Italian sandwich. Will really hits the spot.
yeah, and like I just want like a classic old school like you know like just a layer, some meats and some cheeses, some provolones perhaps.
Yeah,
and that's
some gabagool.
yeah. I can't seem to get a good one anymore.
All right.
This is Boston,
Which is unusual because you're in Boston, and you'd think that you could get a quality Italian
well,
sandwich.
see, here's the problem: is on one hand, you've got like the lazy pizza sub shop version where it's like, I want that, but like I want it to be good. And then you've got the other end of the spectrum where it's just like you don't have to fancy it up.
Right. It's a $50 sandwich that they make in a candlelit room, and they as they're aging their own meats, they like read its stories.
Yeah, I mean, I don't need it to be I'll pay $50 for a sandwich. I'm not above that, but I just want a good one, and I can't seem to find one. And this has been plaguing me for a while. So listen, anybody, if you know a good sandwich shop in Boston, Massachusetts, let me know. Because I love sandwiches, and this has been on my quest.
It's a fucking shame.
I know.
I'm sure somebody out there has got the goods. Our listeners know food. So
I hope so. I don't have to make my own. It's not the same when you make your own.
Nah, it really isn't. Because you know what it is when it comes down to bread.
Yeah.
You know,
that's
and I never have the right bread.
Nope.
No. Oh well. What are you gonna do?
So it goes.
So we practically grew up in neighborhood video stores, and the steady diet of utter garbage that those shops provided us with continues unabated to this day. And there's no one else I enjoy chopping it up with more about trashy movies than Dave. And just before we get into it, here's a little housekeeping. If you want to keep up with us between episodes, you can also find us on Instagram at Bring Me the Axe Pod. Dave's over there at That Werewolf. Mm-hmm. I'm also on TikTok. Ah, boy.
Well, look, it has come to my attention that TikTok is apparently not so much for dancing anymore.
No, well, I still see some dancers, but most of the people that I follow, they're just talking about all the horror movies they've been seeing.
So it's not a lot of rump shakers.
Not a lot of rump shakers. No. So I think I'm gonna have to kind of get with it and just. I mean, it's as if I'm not talking about horror movies enough with this podcast. I have to sort of do it up over there.
You want me to get on there? I'll just be like, here's some weird Japanese shit I've been watching lately.
You know what you could do is you could be like, here's a record I just got.
Oh, that would go on for fucking days.
Because you got no shortage of that shit to show off.
I'm almost at 1,000.
No shit.
Mm-hmm.
God damn. Yeah, there is a. I mean, I'm sure there's record TikTok, but like this specifically the stuff that you're buying is there's not a lot of that kind of business.
Yeah, I have what you might call niche taste.
Yeah. If you don't know, we have another show called 99 Cent Rental. Of course you fucking know. But we cover all
Speaking of niche taste.
I say that as though it's not in the main feed, but you know, sometimes they're new and they don't realize that there's also another show. It covers all manner of video store madness in the weeks that Bring Me the Axes Off. Our latest episode covering Escape from the Bronx is out now, and we'll be back next week proper with a look at Escape from New York. Mm-hmm. It's gonna be fun. I'm looking forward to that one quite a bit.
Yeah, it is.
As I have said, and if you were not aware, it is my favorite movie of all time. Yeah. So you can also contact us directly at bringmetheaxepod@gmail.com with any questions, comments, or suggestions. Do let us know if there's a movie that you love and would like to hear us give it the business. And if you would like to support us on Patreon, you can look us up over there at patreon.com/bringmetheaxepod. There's a couple of tiers you can join there. Subscribers at the $5 a month tier can look forward to our bi-weekly X-Files rewatch pod. Do You Think I'm Spooky? We've also got our Millennium Edition, Bring Me the Axe, where we're looking at modern horror movies made within like the last 25 years. Our latest episode, Barbarian, is out, and we're coming up hot on the heels of our next episode, which will drop on March 1st, where we look at Talk to Me with a couple of guests that I'm sure y'all will be pretty excited about. Yeah. We've also got my bi-weekly DJ show, Radio Free Haddonfield. In the weeks when Do You Think I'm Spooky is off, you can expect a surprising mixtape of everything from rock to disco to punk over there. Once again, that's patreon.com/bringmetheaxpod. We also got merch. Check the show notes. We got a link to our merch. Buy yourself a t-shirt, get a hoodie.
Mm-hmm.
They're nice. And you deserve it. Yeah. Treat yourself. As we say, treat yourself. And lastly, if you like what you hear, you can subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. We're on YouTube now. Search us by name and subscribe if you prefer to consume your podcast that way. And you'd be doing us a favor by leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So
help us.
It takes a second. It takes but a moment. And it's extra special. Put a little extra sauce on it. If you leave a little written review, it doesn't have to be too big, a few words.
Where to get a sandwich?
Where to get a sandwich in Boston, perhaps.
Or just anywhere. Just give other people
That's the thing, is I
too.
do go places. So like where's a good Italian sandwich in a place that you love? Bring me the xpod@gmail.com. And if you listen on YouTube, do us a favor, give the episode a like and leave a comment. We love hearing from you guys. You're fun. I like you. You're good people. I just want to get all that out of the way right at the top of the show because we're gonna hit you with the goodness tonight. Here's a taste of what we're talking about.
You shall pay, Black Prince. I curse you with my name. You shall be Blacula.
Blacula, the Black Avenger, rising from his tomb to fill the night with horror. Blacula, Dracula's soul brother, deadlier even than he.
You know, he is a strange dude.
You're the nut that ran in front of my cab. You're the only imbecile on this street. Boy.
Blacula.
Look at man, you found, he's got to be around here somewhere. Now listen, you take your hands off of me. I don't know you.
He thirsts for your blood. He hungers for your soul. Warm young bodies will feed his hunger. Hot, fresh blood will quench his awful thirst.
Make it a Bloody Mary. Are you, into the occult?
No!
How about the, heavy stuff?
What do you think of vampires?
Vampires? I think they're possibly the most fascinating of all.
More horrifying than Dracula. The Black Avenger, Blacula. From American International Pictures.
Ooh.
Oh,
The
boy,
Black Avenger.
That is a screamy trailer right there. Blacula. My favorite thing about it is how like the first half of it is just Blacula killing cops.
Yeah, no, it is. That is an attractive trailer.
Yes, it is. Good God. Yeah, this is us tonight going to be awkwardly trying to tap dance around the topic of Blaxploitation as two white guys so white that it's actually our name.
Yeah, I'm just gonna take it head on. I mean, I know a little bit about Blaxploitation.
I know a little bit too. Like this is, but I think we kind of talked about this when we did Ganja and Hess this time last year. Even though that movie is kind of erroneously lumped in with Blaxploitation, that is if there is a sort of trash culture, like low culture film movement that is really sort of a blind spot for me, it's Blaxploitation.
I'm into. Every time I watch one, and I don't watch them that often. I mean, there are lots of them.
There's a million of them, but there's not
a lot of good ones.
Yeah.
I like them though. I think you get some really good, like Cotton Comes to Harlem is a great movie. Across 110th Street is a great movie. What is it? Larry Cohen did a bunch of them that are surprisingly good for a white guy making Blaxploitation.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, there's some good ones. The ones that are I think are most obviously the ones that I find that I can really enjoy are ones that are just made by black filmmakers. because they are the most authentic. They're the most interesting. And I maybe it's even though at the top of the fucking pyramid, there's still like white executive producers who are like, yeah, more pimps, more, you know.
Yeah, we'll
more,
get to that.
But this one kind of hits right at the sort of like in the middle of the cycle. But it's kind of one of the movies that really sort of put blaxploitation into high gear
and kicked off a lot of really not great imitators.
There's right. There's Blackenstein.
That one's probably the worst.
There's what is it? There was at one time there was somebody talking at, I believe at Universal, was trying to make a black creature from the Black Lagoon.
Well, I don't know if that would work so much, just because the creature is not a person,
unless it's just a guy swimming around underwater.
There's Dr. Black and Mr. Hyde.
That's also by William Crain, tonight's director. Yep. I've not seen that one.
I've never seen that one.
No. There's Abby.
Abby's good.
Abby's pretty good. I only just recently saw that one, like in the last couple of days. Just saw that one. I've been aware of it for a really long time. One of our listeners actually brought it up with me. She was like, "You guys should do Abby," and I was like, "I've never actually seen that one." That's the Black Exorcist version.
Yeah, the Black Exorcist.
Very good. So yeah, I want to get in, talk details here. Talk turkey.
Yeah. Oh wait. Hey, before that, I made a really good Kurt Vonnegut reference earlier, and I just wanted to make sure I got credit for that because
you're just so proud of it. Here's how. See, again, we're going back to it. You are scientifically proven to be the classier of the two of us. I completely fucking missed it. I have no idea what you're even talking about.
So it goes.
Good God. So yeah, the year was 1972. Year of our Lord. Fine year. A fine year. Here's some movies that came out in 1972. All the Colors of the Dark came out in 1972.
Ooh, okay. Sergio.
Yep, pretty good, right? Actually, that's not Sergio.
It's not Sergio Martino?
No, Sergio Martino, because no, he did the last one on my list. He did What Have You Done to Solange?
Oh, I love that one.
Right. Now I'm fucking blanking on it, on who did All the Colors. Corbucci?
No.
I don't know. I'll have to look it up. Also Italian. The Man from Deep River came out.
Boo.
Yeah. I believe that's the one that kind of kicked off the cannibal craze. It's got Ivan Rasimov in it. A man who's so handsome it makes me angry. And we got Dracula 80, 1972.
I love that movie.
I also love that one tremendously. It is so fucking groovy. And rounding it out, Dr. Phibes Rises Again.
Love that one too.
Pretty good. Also, you want to know something? Also the same year as the Brady Bunch Hawaii episode with Vincent
Fuck
Price.
yeah. That is a tri-part episode. Real good stuff.
Big year for Vincent Price. So yeah, our cast and crew includes a director named William Crain.
It is, in fact, Sergio Martino.
Hey now, Sergio can't be everywhere. No, William Crain, a bit of an enigma to me. I did a lot of searching to sort of figure out what else this guy has done.
TV. TV is the answer.
TV, I believe a lot of advertisements as well. Because his IMDb profile is woefully incomplete.
Well, we got into this when we did Ganja and Hess. You know, this is an era where there were black filmmakers. They just were kind of few and far between, and they didn't really get the opportunity to direct very often. And so when they did, it was like a real rarity. And this is why, you know, we'll get into AIP because that's who produced this movie. But AIP was one of the few companies that was actually hiring black people to make black movies. And so that's how William Crain ends up making this movie. But yeah, he doesn't seem to show up. I'm sure if we compared him to a lot of other black directors in the early 70s, we'd see the same thing. You know, they're making episodes of the Mod Squad or whatever, but like that's probably it.
Yeah. Yeah, which is too bad because I feel like he's really fucking good. And not that there's anything like, you know, less about directing and TV. I mean, there's plenty of great fucking television out there. It just doesn't seem to have the same sort of shine that Hollywood does.
I mean, they didn't have the same budget.
True.
And they even had like less of a budget than you know, their white peers would have had.
Yeah. So Crain is recognized as one of the original LA Rebellion filmmakers, and I'm going to talk about LA Rebellion in a few minutes. But following Blacula, Crain directs some TV, which we said seemed to be where the bulk of his career rests. I got a little note a little ways on, because after Blaxploitation kind of crashes out in the mid 70s, most of the talent of Blaxploitation writ large go and work in television.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure that was the case for a lot of people too. Like if you, when you see these kind of guys who were, studio guys in the 50s, even in the 40s, you see them kind of age out in Hollywood, but they're still very qualified. And so they just kind of shift over to TV because that's all they know how to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and we just talked about it in Bronx Warriors episode. Like once you cross a certain threshold, like even in Italy, like these giallo directors started making fucking murder mysteries for TV, like Lamberto Bava and Michele Soavi did a bunch of that sort of thing too. So I suppose it makes sense. It's like a safety net.
It's also like, it's probably less of a headache. You don't breathing down your neck.
You get scheduled for one episode. It takes you a week to produce front to back. Like you're not in some 3-month, 6-month like production cycle, like in these sorts of things. There's not so much to juggle, because also the director in film is usually juggling the entire fucking project, in spite of the fact that there's like a producer, whereas in TV it's the producer who's juggling all of that shit.
Yeah.
This is he goes to do TV, but not before coming back to Blaxploitation for Dr. Black and Mr. Hyde, as we said. And like we said, his IMDb profile is pretty incomplete, which is too bad. I'd really like to see more of what he's done. This is a very colorful, very comic book movie, and I love it to death. So our cast includes William Marshall, the king of cartoons.
He is the king. I know. As soon as I saw him, I was like, hey, fuck yeah.
The king of cartoons from Pee-wee's Playhouse. His career begins in the 1960s as a player on a lot of television, westerns, Star Trek, and some sword and sandal movies. Among his prolific body of television and screen work, this is probably his best known role. He was also a prolific stage actor.
He has got a top 5 voice.
Oh my God. Yeah. And I was like, God, what episode of Star Trek did he do? And it's some season 2 throwaway episode about a artificial intelligence. But like, as soon as you hear his voice, it's like, oh shit, that guy was made for voice acting.
He sounds a little bit, you know who Bernie Casey is?
No.
I think he was a football player in this, like either late 60s or 70s, but eventually he was a football player and he's like switched over to acting. He had a very similar voice where it is this like booming, like warm, rich voice. It's incredible.
It's so great. I love it. Every time he talks, it's like, yes, what a fucking voice. We've also got Vonetta McGee.
Love her.
Who rules.
Yeah.
And she's incredible. She debuted with Klaus Kinski. What a fucking first movie to be in.
Trial by Fire.
That fucking lunatic. In Sergio Corbucci's The Great Silence, which is a really pretty good Western. And she went on to appear in a good deal of Blaxploitation pictures like this one, Hammer, Detroit 9000, and Shaft in Africa.
She's also in the Norless tapes.
Yeah, she's in Repo Man also. Mm-hmm. She's the lot attendant.
Yep.
Yeah. She told the LA Times in 1979 that Blaxploitation was used like racism, so you don't have to think about the individual elements, just the whole. If you study propaganda, you understand how this works.
Damn, that is a condemnation.
Damn girl. Well, as we're going to find out, the term Blaxploitation stuck, but it was coined as a pejorative.
Mm-hmm. I mean, think about any kind of like exploitation
maybe
genre.
It's just because like we have such a warm spot for it. But most of the time, like exploitation, when they say like exploitation, the word is very loaded.
Yeah.
But like when we're talking about movies, usually it's just like, well, this thing was really popular. This other movie is really popular. This kind of pop culture item is really popular right now. So we're going to exploit the popularity of that thing.
But I think it also connotes like a low end version of something. Like it's definitely the trashy cousin of whatever the thing is.
Oh yeah, I can't think of a single like respectable high budget like exploitation movie.
But I think that's why Blaxploitation ends up being so remarkable, within those kind of subgenres, is that a lot of good stuff ended up coming out of it, and a lot of careers got built on it. So, Vonetta McGee may have felt very obviously disinclined toward the genre, but people like Pam Grier were like really thankful for it. And I mean, it's all a matter of perspective. I think they're probably both right. It's definitely something that was exploiting bigotry.
Sort of the arc of the sort of trajectory of Blaxploitation is kind of like how a lot of this stuff works, where when it starts out, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds because I got a whole thing about Blaxploitation, but it starts out and it becomes essentially like an outlet for black creatives to basically make whatever fucking movie they want to make, tell whatever story they do, and they get to make it with black actors, with black writers, and it's like their thing. And then not just that, but it turns out to be extremely fucking popular. Yeah.
Well, because at the time, black audiences were, because of the way that urban renewal was kind of reshaping cities and suburbs, black audiences in urban areas were like disproportionately made up the audiences of these theaters. So making black movies was just in terms of a market logic, it's just a wise move to do it. But the problem is there was a downside. Obviously, there's a downside to exploiting anybody.
Because that's the thing, is I was going to say the downside to it is that eventually the wrong people see how much money is coming in, and it turns and that's where it sort of peaks and it starts to decline by like 1975. Like really the kind of Blaxploitation period is about like 1970 to 75 proper. And like by about late 73, all of the movies are like directed, produced, written by white people, and it shows. Lots of the titles have the fucking N-word in them. There's a lot of like, that's usually the stuff that I think a lot of people sort of point to when they're like, it just puts stereotypes forward to the front and just kind of puts a spotlight on all the shit that maybe the Black America didn't want to sort of dwell on,
I think also you can still see the negative consequences of that when you look at someone like, and I know I harp on him a lot, but like Quentin Tarantino, if you look at Pam, the movie Jackie Brown that he did, or even The Hateful Eight, I was shocked by. And it's this idea that's like, oh, I'm a white person, but because I love genre movies, or because, I understand this and therefore I can do it too. And it's like, no, man, you can't do it. That's what you don't seem to understand. You may have seen a shitload of these. That doesn't make you one of them.
Right. Like there's just because you appreciate it, doesn't mean that you're sort of like in with the in group,
And that's the to bring up something like a cultural appropriation. That's essentially what it is. It's like you can have an appreciation for these movies. It doesn't mean you understand what the black experience was in Detroit in 1972, or even now for that matter. Like. And that's the thing where, when you have these big explosions in popularity with things, it is going to attract curious people from this sort of out group who will come in and be like, oh, I get this. Yeah, I'm cool, right?
That's, you're just kind of talking about like the 90s right there. But like in the 70s, they're like, oh my God, these movies are making so much money. We should get in on this. Is essentially how that works.
Well, AIP had to be pushed into making these movies by black actors and black producers.
Yeah. And the sort of flashpoint for that is fascinating as hell, and I'm gonna talk about it in a second because we got one more guy to talk about here. Thalmus Rasulala, one of the original cast members of the soap One Life to Live. He held a starring role in it until 1970 when he split for features, appearing in numerous Blaxploitation movies with titles like Cool Breeze, Willie Dynamite, and Bucktown, USA.
Now, Bucktown, USA, good movie. Willie Dynamite, not a good movie.
He's also prolific on television and stage, being our second cast member to appear in an episode of Star Trek. Rasulala was also Kunta Kinte's father in Roots, and he had a late career appearance in the movie Lambada.
Okay, but how many episodes of The Cosby Show was he in?
Oh, no. I don't know.
I'm just going to get, like, I assume that every big black actor that came through Hollywood ended up on at least one of those shows as Cliff's friend or something.
Oh, but when I was looking it up, Vonetta McGee was not on the Cosby Show, but was on an earlier Bill Cosby show.
Yep.
And I immediately feared for her safety.
Oh yeah, no, she definitely. Yeah.
Oh, that poor woman. I hope she was okay. So yeah, here's a tagline for it. Bloodsucker, deadlier than Dracula. Warm young bodies will feed his hunger, and hot fresh blood his awful thirst.
A little long, but I like it.
I like it. It's pretty good. One of the other ones is Dracula's soul brother.
I don't like that. Do not care for that at all.
It's in the trailer. I could not find a poster that actually features that one though.
This movie only has a couple posters.
Right. Because I mean, like the AIP wasn't in the business of making a ton of posters.
No.
You know, they got one that they liked, and this poster rules.
Yeah.
It's got so much going on it. So let's talk about Blaxploitation proper.
Right.
So the term was coined by Junius Griffin of the NAACP. And as we said originally, it was originally a pejorative term for genres of movie, mostly sought to play up black stereotypes at the time. And so
if you want like a modern comparison, I would say like stuff like Tyler Perry, or like a lot of stuff that ends up on Lifetime, very similar. Like it's pitching underhanded to black audiences specifically.
Yeah, okay. I'll give you that. So in 1968, UCLA, which was driven by the rise of the Black Power movement, offered financial assistance to black students to come and study film specifically.
Quiet. The government will shut them down if they hear that.
DEI. Which led directly to the birth of what is called the LA Rebellion, which was a wave of black filmmakers who rejected film as a commercial outlet and instead focused on the emergence of black cinema, which took inspiration from the post-war film movements happening around Europe, specifically France and Italy, and the new African cinema movement that was kind of rising up at the time. Also, as some nations around Africa were sort of gaining independence from previous colonizers. The result was a wave of new art film, which was rooted in black and African identity. And like I said, go back and listen to our Ganja and Hess episode. It's like one of our least listened to episodes.
God, so it's a good one too.
It's a fucking good one. It's a really, really interesting movie with a lot to fucking talk about. So yeah, go back and listen to that. But at the same time, there was a whole influx of new talent in Hollywood. As a result of this push, because it worked. Lots and lots of like black students enrolled at UCLA and studied film, and when they were done, they were sort of released into Hollywood. And a series of studios that were in a slump and in need of something new snatched them up. The low budgets were passed over to new talent that flooded the market with primarily black casts and crew, making action, crime, horror, and comedy movies that were previously booked by white talent informed by the same politics that drove the LA Rebellion. The difference is that for all the notions of black power, blaxploitation was still exploitation and wildly successful financially. It attracted white producers and creatives and filmmakers without the pedigree of the LA Rebellion, and product quickly became watered down and messy, and it just sort of exploited the genre's worst conventions. And by 1975, the party was pretty much over. Evidence of this is how everybody involved in this movie kind of moved over to television after this.
I think a good example of LA Rebellion is like Melvin Van Peebles.
Yeah,
I don't know if he's actually coming out of UCLA.
God, I had another name right in top. There's also Jamal Fanaka, who made the Penitentiary movies, which are 100% blaxploitation movies.
Oh yeah,
of a surprising quality. They're
the first one is. I don't know about the second one.
I'm being a little. The first one is outstanding. It's really fucking gritty and crazy. The sequels get utterly fucking insane until part 3. It just drives the whole thing into the ground. They're pretty good though. This story originates with 2 white writers.
Yeah, no shit. I was like, I had to look them up because I was like, these people, the black people did not write this movie.
No, it was Joan Torres and a guy named Andrew Koenig. To tell a story, the pair recall going to the movies at the Fox Venice Theater in Santa Monica. Notice that horror movies did really well with black audiences who routinely packed the places. What you're saying is, with like urban renewal, the way that the sort of the shape of Los Angeles was changing, like just certain theaters in certain neighborhoods, just or all of a sudden just like all black theaters, and there was an ad. Oh, and also their whole thing was everybody seemed to have a really good time. Everybody's like yelling and screaming, shouting at the screen. You know, like
what the fuck you gonna do now? You don't drop your pistol when you bust in the window. That's your ass, I guess. Yeah.
Just shh. Something wrong with your lips? Yeah. So then they find an ad placed in Variety by AIP calling for horror movie scripts, which caught their attention. Having recently seen an ad for Shaft, it kind of got their wheels turning.
Because neither one of them are actually like film writers. They're just freelance writers. Like like that's a thing you could. I mean, of course, it's still a thing you can do. But like they weren't known like screenwriters. Like I think the biggest thing I could find was like she co-wrote like a self-help book for domestic violence survivors.
Is it like later?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks like an 80s, like a late 80s. It has like a late 80s kind of faux feminism all over it.
Okay. Yeah. As she noticed, there was a large black audience for horror movies, but no primarily black horror movies. So they got down to writing a vampire movie called Count Brown's in Town.
Oh, geez, that is rough.
Yeah. And I looked high and low for anything I could find related to that, because the article that I got all of that from was from basically an online publication called Forward. And in it, she and Koenig kind of take all of the creative. And
they actually can, because so Sam Arkoff said that he talks very briefly about this movie, but so he talks more broadly in his autobiography about Blaxploitation. And he said this was one of the rare scripts that AIP ever received that needed like almost no work. Like they just changed a few things around and then like tailored it a little bit to the actors that they cast, but that was about it. But William Marshall, who plays Blacula, he had I think a little bit of input. Like he changed the main character's name to Mamuwalde from
he changed the entire background of the character as this sort of like African prince, because the setup of this movie is preposterous.
Oh yeah, it's deeply silly.
But like I would love to know what the story was originally.
It sounds like it was really just like he's a slave gets bitten by Dracula. Fast forward to 1972 or whatever.
God, you're probably right.
Well, I will also add the plot to this movie, they can take all the credit they fucking want. It is like lifted directly from Dark Shadows. It's
that, and it's The Mummy.
Yeah. I mean, he gets so in Dark Shadows, the main character of the series, Barnabas Collins, gets locked in a coffin and put in a vault where no one will find him.
Oh, shit.
Like that is exactly, and that would have been, I'm going to say 69, 70.
Okay. And Dark Shadows was pretty fucking popular.
Oh, it was hugely popular.
Okay. So yeah. Yeah. Geez, even Mom watched that.
Hmm?
So what the thing is that William Crain has since commented on it, on the script as he received it. And he said that it involved a lot of shucking and jiving.
Oh, yikes. Of course it did.
I mean, because what do you expect? It's like two white people writing a Blaxploitation movie. Crain wasn't super interested in making the Torrance and Koenig version of the script, but the rumor is that AIP was in a tough spot at the time, and that afforded them a great deal of latitude to kind of turn it into something that they like. I don't think they changed it that much, just enough so that it wasn't as ridiculous as however it was when it landed in their hands.
So Arkoff I believe Nicholson at that point was gone. I think it's just Sam Arkoff running AIP. And he's pretty self-congratulatory about the whole blaxploitation thing. Like he's just like, wasn't that a great thing we did for those people? It comes across that way pretty hard, but he is sort of just like, well, we gave everybody more work, but then all the activist groups started coming around, and it's like, yeah, man, because you were making some kind of racist shit.
Yeah, because like it starts out with movies like Blacula, and this is it's not, and I don't know. I mean, I think the Mamuwalde character is fucking awesome.
Yeah,
it's cool as hell. We also got like Shaft, and Shaft is awesome. What a just such a badass character. All the characters in this are like really cool, very interesting, very engaging people. Yeah. And then a couple of years later, we get fucking Dolomite.
Yeah, and I think
and like Petey Wheatstraw, like all that Rudy Ray Moore stuff and that shit.
I think Arkoff. So he labels all these people. He calls them all like activist groups, and he uses another term that's like really dated. The book's kind of old at this point anyway, but he's basically he's assuming or labeling all these people that like sort of radical, when what it sounds like is it was probably just a lot of people, like black people, pushing more or like more of a stake in the industry or more of a stake in these movies, and he sort of automatically labels it as activism, and it's like, it's the loony left. It's like, can you not call people faggot? Like, well, not in this movie apparently, but
oh my god, oh shit, that was surprising.
Yeah, I was just like, okay, everybody.
Because the way this movie starts out, I was legitimately surprised by these two characters who, like, I'm looking at it, and maybe I'm just surprised that they weren't more of a caricature. Yeah. But they feel fairly even.
Well, we'll get there. We'll get there.
And then later on, they just put the fucking pedal to the metal in terms of the homophobia.
Yeah.
What was the AIP kind of condition at the time?
They were so Arkoff had, I believe, Arkoff was running it by himself at this point. I think his partner had left. By 72, Corman had left.
Oh yeah.
And so they, like, all of their big talent was like either the stars had kind of aged out, like they were like a lot of matinee idols and shit like that. Like they were too old at that point. They're really, nobody new had emerged yet.
Mm-hmm.
And really,
Price was like way off doing something else.
Yeah, he was doing stuff in Italy in Italy, but also in England by this point. And so there really wasn't much. Like they're kind of limping along. They're doing stuff like this movie got packaged as the B picture to Frogs.
What?
Which, yeah, they sold it with Frogs. Like you're going to get a lot of that at this point. You're going to get Empire of the Ants is around this time. You get like the Animal Attack movies were kind of big by this point. You see them on TV, but you see them coming out of AIP. Maybe Land of the Giants. Like it's just real like drive-in trash. Like they were really struggling. So this, as much as he wants to be like, well, we really helped those people. It's like, no, I think they helped you.
That's my understanding of the whole thing.
Yeah. Because it's like I think to everyone's credit who were involved in this, they really found a way to make this. It is a horror movie in a very traditional sense, but it does feel fresh in a lot of ways. And it establishes the tropes and kind of ground rules for things that we will see many, many years later. Like think about Candyman or Get Out. Like that, all of that, the foundation is here in this movie. And this is something very new. We start to see things like the blameless protagonist. The idea that like, yeah, he's the bad guy, sort of, but is he really? Because he doesn't come across as the bad guy. You are rooting for Blacula the whole time.
Yeah.
But they also weave in some of these other big things, like the idea of the past, like the fact that, no matter how far we are, these things, especially in this case, slavery, like it's inescapable. And then the idea of like, think about Ganja and Hess, where this idea of like, change or metaphor, or like death as a metaphor for transformation or for change or for renewal or something like that. And you see all of that will remain in black horror and in horror, I think more broadly, but definitely in black horror, where you get your antagonist, your sort of traditional antagonist isn't really an antagonist at all. They're just sort of an unwilling third victim or whatever,
Yeah.
And so they're really like kind of digging AIP out with these interesting movies. Like, because then right after this, I think we get Cooley High comes out either a year or two after this. That's a great movie. Cornbread, Earl and Me is another one that comes out, I think around the same time, which is like, those are very different. They're not quite, they're obviously both, neither of them are horror movies, but they're really well made Black stories that are like super compelling and really, really good. And so I think they really kind of threw him a lifeline, because anything that they historically would have put out, I think Corman just did it on his own at New World.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Fucking A. You know what? Thank you, Black people.
Again. I mean, not thank you for how you depict my people in this movie, but it's fine. We can't win them all.
Here's the thing.
Can't change overnight.
We got it coming.
Okay, maybe some of us have it coming a little bit less. Easy.
Oh, you got any reviews?
I do. Kind of interesting. This is one where people are divided. So let me hit you the first one. Blacula has more than the requisite number of attacks and is distinguished from other vampire movies by the amount of sympathy we feel for the monster. Blacula is not the heavy in the picture, he is the hero, and all the detectives and policemen who try to capture him are just so many finks that deserve being set on fire or having their necks broken with one swing of the back of Blacula's hand.
All right.
Yeah, well, you know who that is.
No.
That's the Gene Genie.
Get out of here,
Gene
really?
Siskel liked this film.
No shit.
Yes,
all right.
He did. Now he is maybe in the minority on that. Here we go. Boston Globe. It's by a guy named Granville Walker. I don't know who he is. I've never seen his name before.
Okay.
He might have been like a special correspondent or whatever. Maybe Boston Globe's film reviewer was too white for this one. If Blacula were merely a bad film, there would be no cause to belabor the subject beyond a few words. But the film is ridiculous and an imposition upon human sensibilities. Some may think that this film is only for entertainment and that no message is involved. That is superficial. The message is coming through loud and clear. Hollywood will present any insanity to cash in on growing Black movie audiences. So basically, I think
what are they saying?
It sounds like, and this is not. Ordinarily, this could have been me cherry picking, but it's not.
The thing.
The whole thing is vague.
I'm tuning into the same thing that I think you are.
Yeah, the whole review is this sort of vague, what feels like this is something being implied here.
Yeah,
and I think the issue that this guy, this Granville Walker, is having is like, hey, they're trying to package Black empowerment in here and call it entertainment. It's a little bit of a, why do movies have to be political? Can't they just be horror movies?
I know.
Spoiler, no, they can't. Everything we do is political, you fucking idiots.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Boy.
Well, moving on. Anybody who goes to a vampire movie expecting sense is in serious trouble, and Blacula offers less sense than most. But it does provide such bits of knowledge as the, quote, well-known fact, and then in parentheses, not well known by me, that vampires multiply geometrically. But for answers to other questions, we may have to wait, perhaps until Blackenstein, due to open next Christmas. This is the New York Times. He's just being real shitty and kind of shady. But one more to round it out. A vampire story is admittedly ridiculous in a contemporary setting. I don't know why.
God. You guys chill the fuck out. Have a good time.
And
for
much
once
of
in your life.
Much of the plot does seem simple-minded, but it provides some of the same outrageous diversion as Rosemary's Baby, and you're certain to be heartily amused, especially in moments like the one in which Blacula orders a Bloody Mary from a cocktail waitress.
Wah, wah.
Yeah, Stanley Eichelbaum, San Francisco Examiner. So I feel like the Gene Genie gets it. Stanley Eichenbaum takes a little bit of a softer approach to be like, hey, man, it's a fucking movie. Have fun. Yeah. These other assholes, though. I didn't know there'd be so many black people in this.
I know. The tone of that fucking review is like indignation.
Yeah, it's a bit telling, I think, is that how dare you try to tell me I'm bad for being white? I want my money back. No one said this was a DEI movie.
I know. Good God.
Yeah.
We even have black vampires now. Can't even have just white Dracula.
Yeah, look, I don't mind if black people want to be vampires. I don't know why they have to just shove it in our faces all the time.
Oh my God. So you want to get into this business?
I do believe we should.
All right. So we open on a stormy night in Transylvania, Castle Dracula to be exact. The Count entertains the African prince Mamuwalde and his wife Luva.
Now this Count, his name is Charles Macaulay. He was in a movie that I watched the other night called The Twilight People.
The Twilight People. Ooh. Yeah, I noticed that when I looked him up. I was
that
like,
movie is terrible.
Yeah, I think he's pretty great here.
He is hammy as hell.
Now I have absolutely no evidence to support this. This is just pure fucking conjecture. The way that he's made up makes me think that they wanted Vincent Price for this. Kind of looks like him. He's got the beard. He's got the hair.
So I was thinking, is it Acquaintance? George Quaintance? Who was Count Yorga?
Count Yorga?
Yeah. I was thinking Yorga.
Okay.
Because they actually do they recycle some footage from Count Yorga in this movie twice.
That's awesome. Mamuwalde seeks to bring his people into the broader world through the ambassadorship of Count Dracula for some fucking reason.
And as Count Dracula says, he's never had the opportunity to entertain personage of the Dark Continent.
Right.
Yep, Sam, this is definitely one that doesn't need any rewrites.
I love this fucking setup because like they want to sort of like, they want to introduce, the African people into the sort of broader economic world of Europe through the tiny little voivod of fucking Transylvania.
Yeah, let's start in Transylvania, at a time when things are going so well for them.
So they propose a first step. Cessation of the European slave trade. And Dracula finds this ridiculous because he would love to own Luva.
Wow, insanely tacky.
Oh, he was like, I thought you were like offering me this beautiful woman.
I feel like this level of racism must have sounded hard even in 1972. Because I was just like, holy shit.
Because even Mamuwalde is like, excuse me?
And he tries to keep his composure. Better than anybody else could have, I think.
Things become tense and Mamuwalde moves to leave, but Dracula summons some goons and a fight ensues.
And their makeup is fucking wild.
It's the vampire makeup in this movie is nuts
because it's like they just take a bunch of like pancake makeup of various colors and just kind of mush it on their faces and like wipe it down.
It's wild. So it looks like Mamuwalde is about to drive the goons back when they get the better of him and knock him out. So Dracula, now fully vamped out, brings in his court of vampire ladies who grab Luva.
Is Dracula supposed to be crying in this moment? He's got like some weird shit like running out of his eyes, but it's like
he's got like
black
bloody tears.
Okay. I mean, I liked it. I was.
Yeah. It's a cool look. So when the chaos is over, Dracula puts Mamuwalde in a coffin and curses him with vampirism before closing him up in it.
A la Barnabas Collins.
And then he ghoulishly locks Luva up in the crypt with him and in a sealed coffin so she can listen to him go mad with hunger while she dies of starvation.
Also Dark Shadows. So I'm not even joking. This is literally the plot of Dark Shadows.
Once you mentioned that, I was like, oh my God, they completely did rip this off.
Yeah. And so then hard cut to a banging soundtrack.
Oh, dude, these titles are, it's like some Saul Bass shit. Awesome motion graphics. The score is by a guy named Gene Page.
Gene Page hasn't done much. I think H.R. Puff and stuff.
He hasn't done much in movies.
Yeah, big TV.
but also he was like just like a record producer and a composer. And so he worked mostly with like pop and soul musicians. So like he worked with the Righteous Brothers and the Jackson 5 and fucking Martha and the Vandellas and Jefferson Starship, Dionne Warwick, Whitney Houston.
I feel like one of those things is not like the other.
I know. But good God, the soundtrack to this movie is so fucking good because it's all just like R&B and funk. And we get the Hughes Corporation.
Multiple times.
Yep. So we cut to the modern day. A couple of interior designers are buying up all the Dracula estate.
Just a couple of gays. Look, here's the deal. Is an interracial gay couple a little bit radical for 1972? Yeah, I think so.
That's the thing is what I saw when I first saw this, like, because I hadn't seen this in a really, really long time. I had completely forgotten about the setup. And I was like, they are not as flamboyant and ridiculous as I think I was expecting them to be.
Yeah, they definitely could have made them a couple of mincing fairies, and they don't. And I guess for that, I'm thankful.
But later on, my man.
Yikes. But I do feel like the antiques angle is a little on the nose, maybe.
What is it? I can't remember. Is it Billy or Bobby? Billy, I believe, is the white guy.
Bobby. Bobby's the black guy.
And Billy's got a great fashion sense.
Oh yeah,
Bobby's got gray hair.
They look like they are on their way to the disco. But first they have to stop at, I guess, Dracula's castle?
They go to Dracula's castle to buy up all of his estate.
I mean, if someone was like, hey, you're here in Romania, you're here in Wallachia, Dracula's castle is having an estate sale. You interested? I'd go. Jesus Christ, yes.
I would fly there.
I mean, I'm pretty sure Dracula's castle has been picked over by now. But.
Yep. So they buy up all of his stuff and ship it back to America. Not for a second taking the legend of Dracula seriously.
And then at one point he's like, this might either be while they're there or while they're unpacking. But he's like, oh, if the fire department could see you now, you silly lamp queen. And I was like, what the fuck is a lamp queen? But also put a pin in that because I'm doing a callback later.
So yeah, the agent brings them down into the hidden crypt where Mamuwalde's coffin remains. So now back in Los Angeles, the designers Billy and Bobby have their goods shipped to their warehouse. They light the place with what you might call Chekhov's oil lamp. Yeah,
you silly lamp queen. Hey, if you just bought a 500-year-old antique coffin, what's the first thing you do? Is it go at it with a crowbar?
Oh yeah, they got to pop it open because they're going to make a bed out of it. Yeah, it'll really freak them out. Bobby cuts himself in the process, and while they're distracted, dealing with his injury, the coffin opens slowly. Mamuwalde rises from death and attacks.
And the look on his face when he comes up out of the coffin is this real like, what the fuck? Look.
Also, what is going on with the facial hair?
I think they were like, how can we want to do more. We want to make him look monstrous.
They want to make him look kind of bestial.
Yeah. And I think that's sort of the way they were like, well, we can't go full werewolf. He's a vampire, but like we want to bushy him up a little bit.
Yeah. Cause he's got beard hair in like the weirdest spots on his face, like in his upper cheeks.
Yeah. It's like where your cheekbone is.
Yeah. Absolutely bizarre. It's not always there. And maybe it's just like when he's in those sort of like frenzied vampire states. Cause sometimes like most of the time, like he's just walking around looking like normal old William Marshall.
Mm-hmm. Now I think what is interesting here, they could have gone, and it sounds like maybe they kind of tried to initially go just the traditional Dracula route. Now I love Dracula. I say that like Oprah Winfrey says, I love bread. And I'm a big fan of that, but like it's Dracula, especially Bela Lugosi's Dracula, is a big Christmas ham. I mean, this whole like, I don't drink wine. Like, and they could have done that, but they don't. And I'm going to give them a lot of credit for not taking the easy route, especially for two fucking white people making a black vampire movie.
Oh, I know.
Like, because I will say it's William Marshall he's an imposing presence, but he's not an intimidating presence. And yet, when he is actually the vampire moments in this movie are a little bit unnerving.
He's got he has a physicality about him. He's very tall. But and maybe it's just the way that they dress him, or at least just the way that they're composing the shots. Like when he's on screen, he takes up most of the frame.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I mean, this is also where he finds this real sassy cape. And you know, he looks very pleased with himself.
Maybe it was Dracula's cape.
Okay.
Like they bought Dracula's cape like at fucking discount bargain prices.
All right. Well, then additional credit to them for not beating us over the head with that.
So first he kills Bobby, draining the blood from his arm, and then he attacks Billy, bites his neck, leaving fang marks. Once fed, he's a different beast, composed. He dons the cape, because what's a vampire without a cape? And then he gets back into his coffin, closing himself in while laughing like a fiend.
Yeah, he definitely has like oh, Jesus, this is going to be good.
So now we cut to Bobby's funeral. Mamuwalde watches the corpse from behind some drapes. Bobby's corpse animates until the funeral director comes in with a couple of Bobby's friends. A couple of ladies, one of whom looks a lot like Luva, and a man, Dr. Gordon Thomas, a pathologist for the LAPD.
I would like to point out, Tina, who is the one who looks like Luva, she is wearing a big purple cloak. Now, I realize they're being mysterious for the big reveal, so we see that she is, in fact, Luva. What I will say about Tina is she is chic as hell in every single scene of this movie.
She is a fucking beautiful woman.
She wears the hell out of every outfit she has.
Yep. So he gets Dr. Thomas there. He gets to looking at the bite on Bobby's neck, which the mortuary attendant insists is a rat bite.
Yeah, because Dr. Gordon there, he's from the Scientific Investigation Division, which is not a real thing, but maybe it should be.
I just keep calling it like the crime lab. So Dr. Thomas notices that Bobby's veins are collapsed from a significant loss of blood. And the attendant also has Billy's body, but he's white, and he usually doesn't get a lot of white people in his funeral home.
I like that. It's good.
Yeah. Tina and Michelle, the ladies from the prior
Oh, wait, this is what he says. He's like, what about the other victim? And he says, oh, his associate? And my note says, like his roommate or his best friend.
Yeah. The ladies from the prior scene, they walk home. Tina breaks off on her own, gets a little spooked.
Yeah, because she's running in those fucking purple shoes. I enjoy fashion, but these things are, again, chic as hell.
She starts running, runs straight into Mamuwalde. Then running from him, in her haste, she drops her purse, which is recovered by the vampire, who insists that she's Luva. And then in all the confusion, he runs into the street and gets hit by a taxi.
Gets hit by Niecy Nash driving a taxi. She looks just like her.
She does, yeah. And she's got the sass.
Mm-hmm. She's good. It's a shame that this is her only moment in the movie, because she's really fucking good.
She is really funny. Because after this, she's going to appear a couple more times, but just as a vampire.
Yeah.
The driver gets out, gives him hell, remembering that he's now a powerful vampire. He suddenly attacks the driver and bites her neck.
Now, this is where we get this weird mix of comedy and horror. And not comedy and horror in the way that we would think of it today, like Shaun of the Dead or something. Yeah. It's comedy it's a very particular culture, in this case, black culture, that it just works really well because she turns it so quickly once she realizes that he's actually quite threatening. And this happens a couple times, and every time it works so well. This is the type of shit that elevates this movie above other garbage that was being pumped out, because this was not supposed to be a good movie.
Right. It was just supposed to be a movie.
Yeah, and I just I'm super into it. I think they're doing a great job.
Yeah. Tina, meanwhile, gets home, locks herself in her apartment. There's a knocking at her door, so she creeps up on it with a knife, but it's only Michelle. So she explains to her what happened. Mamuwalde, meanwhile, returns the coffin in his warehouse, retiring with Tina's purse.
Gonna snuggle with her purse.
Just like you do.
Yeah.
So now Dr. Thomas drops into the police station the next day to drop in on the morgue where the cab driver's body is being kept.
Now,
he notices...
Well, so another interesting angle of this movie is and maybe this is what the critics were so outraged by, or who knows what, but there's a very obvious insinuation that the white cops aren't really doing much to figure out what happened.
Yes.
And that will be called out directly.
yeah, they keep like losing the bodies, they keep losing the reports, and like nobody but Dr. Thomas seems all that like freaked out by it.
Right. And I think that's another thing that we see established here. I mean, and that's obviously not new to movies or life, but it gets established here, and we're going to see it just continuously down the line in every movie where it's like, oh, you know, it's made very explicit in something like Candyman, where it's like, oh, well, I mean, I guess we'll try a little bit, but you know. You know how it is. And so
I'm not making any promises.
The only people, like, you have to solve your own crimes, essentially. And this is going to be common across the board with like minority film, like especially as the, and into the 80s, like the late 70s and then into the 80s, as minority groups start to gain more power and start to make their own like kind of cultural texts and output. That's like a key feature in all of them is like, yeah, white people don't seem that into helping us, even when we're being eaten.
Right. So he notices that she has the same bite marks on her neck as Bobby. So he talks to Lieutenant Peters, the white cop, about the discovery of the 2 bodies in the warehouse, but they've lost the reports on those bodies. The white cop suggests that if the deaths are related to the organized crime, they might be related to Panther activity, which Thomas dismisses, dropping a hard F slur about the 2 dead men.
Yeah. Oh, God. 2 faggot interior decorators and a lady cab driver. Okay, buddy. You skipped over when he goes to the morgue because you skipped over Elisha Cook. Did that happen already?
When
so he goes to look at the body and Elisha Cook. Why does Elisha Cook have a hook hand?
I don't know. I have no idea.
So for anybody who doesn't know,
until the end of the movie, I'm like, where did he always have that?
So anyone who doesn't know, Elisha Cook is like, by this point, he hadn't really been in movies for a while, but in the 50s, he was in shitloads of movies. He's in that Kubrick movie, The Killing. He's in House on Haunted Hill. He is in Messiah, the Satan movie that's like Michael Greer.
Something
Messiah.
Well, Messiah of Evil?
Yes, he's in Messiah of Evil. Like he was a character actor. He's in Salem's Lot. And so it's weird to see him in this with like such an obvious bit. Like, why does he have a big hook?
I don't know. You know, it's one of those things where I'm sure that he got on stage and he's like, hey, guys, I had a thought. What if like back in the day, I was like in the war and I lost my arm.
And William Crain was like, sure, whatever, man. You're in this for like 5 minutes. It doesn't matter.
It's like, he's like, go see if the prop guy's got a hook. And
but he does say to the doctor, he's like, she's looking for something, if you know what I mean. And I was like, I don't know what you mean. What do you mean? Right? Is he implying that she's a prostitute?
Maybe.
She's a cab driver. Don't talk about Niecy Nash that way. You don't have to besmirch her.
She's not looking for a good time.
Anyway. So he's talking to the cop, and the cop says, or I don't remember if he says it, if Gordon says it, or if the cop says it, but he says, Tina got herself hassled last night. And I thought that phrasing was so interesting. So it's like, what do you mean got herself hassled? She's just walking down the fucking street.
She's walking. Listen, this is what's going to happen when you go out on the streets by yourself and you're looking that good.
Yeah, you're wearing purple shoes.
You got your purple cowl on. You're going to attract the attention of a vampire.
You have an ancient vampire.
So now it turns out also that Michelle works in the crime lab with Dr. Thomas, and she tells him about what happened to Tina as he heads out to do an autopsy of Bobby at the funeral home. So now we cut to a nightclub where we get a kick-ass performance from the Hughes Corporation.
I will say all of them are doing it for the back row.
They are dancing their asses off. Mm-hmm. It's so great. Hughes Corporation did Rock the Boat. You know that song.
Yeah. Also, my note at this point says, not a lot of Blacula in this movie so far. A lot of Tina, but not a lot of Blacula.
So Thomas, Tina, and Michelle party down. It's Tina's birthday, I think.
It is Michelle's birthday.
Michelle, okay. And in walks Mamuwalde. He returns Tina's purse to her. It seems to charm her using his vampire magic.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's vampire magic. I just think Blacula is a smooth operator.
A smooth operating 24/7.
Because he just swoops right in and they're like, well, would you like to join us? And he just sits down with strangers because that's a thing people do, I guess.
Well, it happens in Dracula.
That is true.
You know.
So yeah. He joins them at the opera.
Yeah. So she invites him to join them at her table.
I didn't catch that at all.
Yeah. So he apologizes for scaring her the other night, explaining that he was at the funeral home making arrangements for his wife, who he just lost, and also who bears a striking resemblance to Tina.
Well, I think this scene is really interesting because they are setting up the Dracula Harker, that like weird kind of love triangle-y kind of thing, I guess, is kind of what they're doing. But there's also an interesting contrast between Gordon's he is an example of like assertive 70s black masculinity. He's very kind of commanding and take charge and, you know, all that. And Mamuwalde is a very different vibe. And they're just like immediately at odds with each other. Very, very different personalities.
Yeah, because Mamuwalde's affect is he's very chill.
Yeah, he's just completely unflappable. He's a smooth operator.
He's a smooth fucking operator.
Smooth operator.
Yeah, and Dr. Thomas for sure, assertive and aggressive.
Yeah,
he always knows what to do.
Yeah, which again, this is that idea of like when the people to whom the movie is being sold are taking control of the actual movie, you do get to see stuff like it's like this like assertive black man in this environment sort of taking control. You probably would not have seen that in a white movie, or at least you would have seen it it would have been framed in a very negative light.
Yeah.
I mean, I find this kind of personality to be repugnant, regardless of race, but I think that it would have been framed very differently and very negatively.
Oh, he would have been uppity.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you know who definitely would have been a black character in a white movie? Skillet.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So for all of these like dignified
Skillet is basically, have you ever seen Can't Hardly Wait?
Yeah.
Skillet is what is Donald Faison's character in that? The drummer for the band?
The drummer for Love Burger?
Yeah. He's that.
Right.
Or he's just like, he's got a zinger for everything.
Yeah. So we cut to the funeral home where the body of Bobby is now missing. When we cut back, the band continues to play. Thomas gets a call from the funeral director informing him of the missing body. So now Mamuwalde excuses himself, and Tina follows him out, asking him to stay. She tells him that he'll be there tomorrow night and would like to see her again. And also, there's a photographer there taking pictures of everyone. She leaves to go develop her photos at home, and to her horror, finds that Mamuwalde is absent from the shots where he should definitely be in them.
And what I love about this moment is she's still in her, I don't even know if they still did this in the 70s, but like this was a thing they used to do in like the 30s and 40s and into the 50s, I guess, where like you would go, like a woman would go table to table and take a picture of the couple. And then before you left the nightclub or wherever you were, they would have it, developed and you could take it home. It's a keepsake. I don't know if they still did that in the 70s, but she's wearing like this ridiculous, like sparkly showgirl outfit.
Yeah.
And when she gets home, she goes right into her like dark room. She's still wearing her ridiculous sparkly outfit. And she basically just has like the door open while she's trying to develop the photographs, and she's drinking a Coors while she does it. Just no frills.
No, just get down to business.
And then she hears a noise and she just like opens the curtains, fully exposing the photos to light.
Right. Unfortunately, Mamuwalde also let himself into her house and he attacks her in the dark room.
And again, it's a bit of a frightening moment.
Yeah.
Because it's aggressive.
Yeah, because he gets on her and he like growls and shit. Like, So she stumbles out into the street as a cop drives up and he gets out to help her, and then she bites him on the neck.
Yeah.
So at the crime lab, Michelle comes in with books about vampires and ghouls. Dr. Gordon tells Michelle that they're going to exhume Billy's body. Tina is met by Mamuwalde at her door, at her apartment. She's becoming unspeakably obsessed with him, and that's when he tells her that she's his wife, essentially. He explains their background.
Oh, no, it was the conversation with Tina. Now, that's the one where he was like, well, who the hell would want a dead faggot anyway? And my note was like, you are all out of control. You don't hear Mamuwalde out there throwing around homophobic slurs, do you?
No, and we're not done either.
Oh, God, no.
So they're from a Nigerian tribe sent to Europe to protest the slave trade, but he ended up enslaved by Dracula.
Yeah, you can't be showing up to a lady's house in the middle of the night, telling her she's your wife, that you're Dracula, and that she's now has to be with you. This is not a thing you can do.
No.
Though I encourage everyone to try.
Hey, you never know what works.
Yeah, Tina, you are in danger, girl.
So he begs her to return to him as his wife, but she has to do it of her own choosing. So she invites him to stay with her.
Yeah, and then he whips that cape off all sexy like.
Right. Yep.
Like
so
he's been whipping a cape off for hundreds of years.
Right. Like, I mean, or he just like spent all fucking afternoon just like practicing it.
Because he can't go out. So he's just like, what am I going to do? Do my cape. My space work is my cape work.
So now Dr. Thomas and Michelle dig up Bobby's grave.
Which is not a thing you can do. You cannot just go with a shovel to the graveyard.
Well, I mean, you can, but
it is unadvisable.
When they open it, he suddenly leaps out all vamped out. And Gordon struggles with him and stakes him while Michelle freaks out.
And that is a hate crime right there.
They come to a terrible conclusion that their friend that they've been calling an F slur this whole time is also a vampire, and they need to find him.
We loved Bobby so much. That faggot, I loved him. You know, I have always found it ironic, and I understand all the nuances of how this works, but I have always found it ironic that, like, this is a movie that has a very strong undercurrent of, like, unresolved oppression, and racism is playing a big part of it. And then on the back end, they're just like, "What, these queers? Nah, I don't care.
I was gonna say, because
I'll stake them all, dead or alive."
Like, because there's also it wasn't just like a Black Power thing. Like this movement in Blaxploitation in particular had plenty of room for positive portrayals of women as well, like women with agency, women who are tough as fucking nails. Some not so much, but there are plenty of movies like Pam Grier's.
Yeah, you get your coffee browns.
Yeah, but yeah, no room for queers.
Well, hey, got a little news for you. That was America, literally forever.
Yeah. Oh well.
Yeah. What are you gonna do? Am I right?
Hey, what are you gonna do? So, they call up the city morgue and ask about the cab driver, get her out of the freezer, lock her in the room. He's coming over with Lieutenant Peters to check her out. So now the cab driver's body, now thawed out, begins to stir, and she gets up as she lets herself out of the room, running eerily in slow motion.
Yeah, this scene is wild. Like the way, I think it's because it's slowed down, but like she's got that fucking pancakey makeup on, and her hair is out of control, like wild, and she looks really intense as she's running at him down the hall. And I don't know why, but like all the vampires in this movie are, I don't know, like I guess the word is juicy looking. Like they're all like kind of wet and gross.
Yeah, you got to remember, like they're dead people. They're dead. They're all messed up.
Oh, that's good. That's a good one.
Yeah.
So you missed my Kurt Vonnegut, but I got that one.
So she also, they had to get a special camera to shoot that scene.
Really?
A very expensive, like high speed camera. You might use it for like sports and shit like that.
It's a fucking cool scene. Like I think it's probably the coolest scene of the movie.
Yeah. So now at Tina's place, she and Mamuwalde have finished kicking it, and he has to leave as daylight approaches.
I know, but again, this Blacula, he is a smooth operator.
Oh yeah, he's like, don't worry, baby, I'm gonna come back for you.
Mm-hmm.
So Thomas and Peters are too late, finding the place tossed and covered in blood. They go into the morgue, and the cab driver vampire leaps up from the stretcher, attacking them.
This scene is intense and weird.
It's crazy. I love it.
Because she's screaming the whole time in this really awful way.
Yeah. And then Thomas brought a cross and demonstrates to Peters that she's a vampire, and she dies in the sunlight. He and Peters make a plan to scour the city looking for the other vampires because they multiply geometrically.
Okay, does he mean exponentially?
Exponentially.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So they gotta go scour the city, deal with them before they get out of hand. But first, they have to go back to the nightclub for another awesome Hughes Corporation performance. So now Mamuwalde returns to meet Tina there. Thomas decides to drop some heavy shit on him, asking him if he's into the occult.
I love this part too. Love this part too. What about vampires?
I find vampires most fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they start talking about vampires and the recent killings. Thomas heavily implies that he might think that Mamuwalde is a vampire, and then Mamuwalde leaves with Tina.
Mm-hmm.
So their friend Skillet shows up again.
Oh, God.
And remarks that their friend, the photographer lady, disappeared recently. So Gordon goes over to her place and searches her darkroom, turning up the negatives of the photos. She took a Tina and Mamuwalde, noticing also that he's missing from the photos where he should have been there. And I do like the way that the sort of coming to realize that he's a vampire sort of progresses throughout the movie, because it's not like it takes a little bit of like convincing. There's like a natural flow to it. It's a neat sort of like unraveling of a mystery.
Yes.
Feels pretty good.
Yes. It is a remarkably well-written story.
Yeah.
I mean, it's super familiar. Obviously, they're working from a source material that is well-worn at this point, but it's very well done.
Yeah, there's a logical flow to it that you wouldn't really find. Like other movies coming out of AIP just would not spend this kind of time.
Well, they couldn't have been obviously it's a different vibe. They couldn't have done the same madcap wacky thing that they would have done like a decade earlier. So it has to have, it's a little bit more serious. It has to have a little bit more of like an actual narrative arc.
Right. So now Thomas and Michelle race over to Tina's place as Mamuwalde proposes that he turn her into a vampire tonight. And then they bust in, they chase Mamuwalde out into the street. And then the cop chases him back to his warehouse lair where he confronts him in the alley.
And he says, "Is that him?" And the other one says, "How can you tell? They all look alike." Yikes.
Oh, boy. Yeah. Because these cops, they're about to get it.
Mm-hmm. It is a little bit strange to me that in under the circumstances that this white cop is the one running the show.
Right. Well, yeah, he seems to. Oh, are you talking about Peters? Lieutenant Peters?
Yeah.
He takes a back seat to like to Gordon's lead.
And so that is another interesting aspect about this movie in particular, but also I think Blaxploitation more broadly, is that it will eventually take on this trope where the white authority is not so much usurped as it is like yielded in a way.
Yeah.
That's a very interesting, because obviously that was not what was happening in the real world. So again, like as much as she was unhappy with either this movie or with Blaxploitation in general, it does seem to, I mean, it's symbolic, I guess, in a way, and I don't have a lot of use for symbolism, but it does seem to strengthen the Black Power movement at least, or encourage it in a way.
It's a power fantasy. And
you see black people triumphing over, like even fucking Mamuwalde goes full ACAB at this point.
Yes, he does.
Like the real problem of the movie is white people sort of like, obviously you just can't have a vampire roaming around. No matter how smooth he is, it will become a problem. Right. But like that's sort of how they deal with the vampire aspect of it. The bigger problem is like the cops that are like, "Oh, we lost the file. What can you do?"
Right. So the cop shoots Mamuwalde, but the bullets do nothing. And so Mamuwalde kills him, and nothing of value was lost.
Nope. And he backhands him.
Yeah. Okay. Deal with the man. So everywhere in the city, some cops make more homophobic remarks about Bobby when they find him walking around the city.
Yeah.
And Gordon and Peters hit the street, try to narrow down where Bobby might be going. They figure out that they're going to Bobby's warehouse. They head over there with a shitload of pigs. So now inside the warehouse, they're suddenly set upon by vampires, a whole bunch of them.
And they all look super weird.
Juicy, you might say.
Yes. It's the only word that came to mind.
So the vampires kill more cops. With their backs against the wall, Gordon and Peters start throwing the oil lamps at the vampires.
Yeah, and that's my note says, who's the lamp queen now, bitch? Triumph.
Yeah, which sets fire to them all, including the vampire cops, and then they beat it while the warehouse goes up in flames. So now, as soon as they're outside, they run into Mamuwalde, who tells them that he moved his coffin in case they got any funny ideas. He doesn't have any time to deal with them, though. He has to get back to Tina, so he turns into a bat and flies away.
Well, first he backhands someone, then he turns into a bat.
At Tina's, Michelle and Gordon try and explain to her what's going on, and she reluctantly agrees to help them destroy him. And now the cops block off the streets in preparation for this final confrontation. Mamuwalde watches them from the rooftop and magically calls to Tina with his crazy vampire magic.
Mm-hmm.
No, but everybody goes to check on Tina. They find her room empty and the window open. Now, on the streets, she walks to wherever Mamuwalde is while in a fugue state. And then the cops catch up to her as she enters some kind of underground chemical plant where she meets Mamuwalde. The cops pour in. One of them manages to catch up to them as he and Tina run away.
And from like here on the scene, because this ending, it drags a little bit. Like
a little bit, yeah.
But it gets increasingly more intense. Like it's really building in tension.
Yeah. Yeah. So the cop shoots at them and he hits Tina. And so Mamuwalde beats him to death and then turns Tina so she'll be undead instead of regular dead.
And look, I'm into that because I thought Tina's great. I don't want Mamuwalde to be alone.
Right. I want her to be fabulous forever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Then he calls out to Gordon and all the cops, vowing to kill them all. And then he busily gets to killing cops.
It's great.
It's fucking fantastic. Just getting thrown into electrical panels.
Yeah, that one doesn't make a lot of sense. Like why that guy just bursts into flame.
Right.
But I'll take it.
Right. In the chaos, Dr. Thomas and Peter finds Mamuwalde's coffin and they open it thinking that he might be in there. They get ready to stake him, but as soon as they open it, they drive the stakes in and kill Vampire Tina.
Oh,
I know.
You may as well just driven the stake through my heart.
Mamuwalde is too late to save her. Seeing her corpse, he is overcome with grief and he wanders back to the surface where the sun is rising. Then he steps
My
out
note says, don't do it, Blacula. The world needs you.
I know. Mamuwalde steps out into the sun where he falls and is overcome by it. His body decomposes very quickly before the eyes of Gordon and Lieutenant Peters, leaving only a skull.
Well, not only a skull. For a period there's maggots, and I thought, why are there maggots on there?
You got to make it gross.
Yeah, they did, and then they succeeded.
Yeah.
And also, if he's dead, how can there be a sequel? But that doesn't matter. There's going to be a sequel.
Right. All right. The end. Blacula.
Yeah, the end for now.
Yeah.
Ellipses, scream, Blacula, scream.
Yep. The next year we get Scream, Blacula, Scream, which is fucking awesome. What a title.
Yeah, the movie's not good, but the title's
but
fantastic.
Great title. Yeah.
Well, there we have it. We last year settled in for Ganja and Hess, a very different vampire film.
Yeah.
This one is way more fun.
Way more fun. Yeah. Ganja and Hess is intense, and I think we described it as extremely challenging and one of the angriest movies I've ever seen.
It's also incredibly sad.
Yeah. It's just a different kind of movie. It's an art film. This, however, is a fucking comic book.
But I will say they are both attempting to address the same thing. They're just coming at it in very, very different ways. And I think Bill Gunn's movie is a little bit complicated by his own sexuality, but for the most part, they are both trying to address the same thing. Except this one's kind of coming from white people, and then the black actors are trying to make the best of it.
Right. Like they interpolate. They have to sort of like bring it down to where they want it to be.
Right.
Whereas Bill Gunn's movie is just like purely from his own from his own imagination, and it's just way different, way more poetic.
Yeah.
No, we have this movie to thank for the creation of Blade the Vampire Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Also, that I can't remember the character's name on Venture Brothers, who's a Blacula hunter.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but he can't kill regular vampires. He can only kill Blaculas.
Yep. This is a tough one. You know, we usually wind them down and say, well, how does this movie age? I think this is a hard one because on one hand, this is a pretty good movie. It's definitely fun. It takes the horror seriously without taking itself too seriously, which is, I think, a rarity, especially in 1972. And it's also a foundational text in terms of black horror. And I think an example of blaxploitation done well.
Yeah.
But I think that said, it's also extremely dated with an aesthetic that would probably seem silly to a lot of people who don't have the context for it.
Yeah.
It's also, I mean, it is full of offensive language. Like even for me, and I throw that word around a lot.
Yeah, it's definitely, which is really kind of the curse, the overall curse of blaxploitation is it was such a particular moment in history that once you get a few years away from it, it starts to unravel, you know, as our sort of our sensibilities change, the way that we sort of like particularly, you know, any sort of white person of any kind of empathy sort of looks back on the way that fucking black people have been treated for fucking hundreds of years. You start to feel a little weird watching these kinds of movies.
Yeah.
Because that is an ever-present element of it is what is our fucking role in all of this.
Yeah. And I think that becomes a really important part of black horror in particular is this idea that, you know, we're constantly trying to escape the problem. Just to avoid having to deal with it head on.
Yeah.
And it never works out very well. I think where I land on this movie is that this one maybe serves a better purpose in like a film studies class than it does on like a modern shelf.
Right. Like I would say faced with other black horror movies, I'd probably watch something else, probably something a little bit more recent.
Yeah. But I mean, I still loved, I've seen this, I think I'd only seen it maybe once and it was a long time. It was like 15 years ago or so. And I really enjoyed it. It's fun. It has some good spooky moments. It's got a fucking killer soundtrack, good acting.
Yeah. The cast is so fucking good. The cast is what makes it. Because ultimately there's like 5 people in this movie.
Yeah. And not much of a story. Like one that is, you know, like I said, pretty well worn. So you need to bring some life to it.
Know? Yeah.
And William Marshall absolutely brings life to it. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. I mean, is it still relevant? Probably not, but it's definitely still has a place somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I don't know. On top of that, it's a fun movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's got some problems.
But that's the thing. It's like, that's why one of the things we're doing here is like a lot of these movies have pretty big issues. And this one, maybe more so than some of the ones we've watched lately, but like, it doesn't mean it's not still valuable. It just means you got to watch it with a particular understanding.
Right. I hope we got you there because Blacula, it's fun. It's good. Yeah. I enjoy this movie tremendously. It's really good. Yep. So where are we off to next?
Well, next week, 99-cent rental. We're going to be talking about one of our favorite movies, John Carpenter's post-apocalyptic masterpiece, Escape from New York. I'm going to do my best Romero impression. And in 2 weeks, Bring Me the Axe. We're going to be celebrating our 2nd anniversary with a titan of the genre. Speaking of Romero's, Night of the Living Dead.
Fucking A.
I'll do my best Romero. Well, I won't. We already recorded it. But still, I would have done, had I known, I would have done another just for continuity.
Yeah. It's we've already recorded it. It's a hell of an episode. I can't wait for you guys to hear it. So be back here in a week for Escape from New York, and then we're gonna fucking hit you with a double whammy with Night of the Living Dead. Woo!